Well, it's October 2021. Landlords have been waiting for this day for a long time, and this is the end of the eviction ban. So that means that all of our tenants who are delinquent, we can rush right out to eviction court and evict them, right? Well, not quite. There's a few things that we need to look at. So this is the end of Senate Bill 3088 and its extension, Senate Bill 91. But the replacement law now, or the extension law, is AB 832. And that designates how evictions are going to have to work during different periods of times. There's 3 periods of times that we're going to take a look at. We'll break it down and make it pretty easy for you. A couple disclosures before I get started. Number one, I'm not an attorney and I can't give legal advice. My name is John Tyner. I own Tyner Property Management, and me and a team of about 15 employees manage about 800 properties in the greater Sacramento area. Everything I'll say today has to do with California law, but understand that there are some local jurisdictions that have created their own rules, such as Los Angeles. And if you're in one of those areas, there's different rules that would apply to you. And lastly, the current law, Assembly Bill 832, is named the Tenant Relief Act. And my position is I think it was unconstitutional, un-American, and wrong on its face. However, this is the law, and this is what we have to abide by, so we will go through the rules for you. Assembly Bill 832 has 3 different time periods. The first of those time periods is the protected time period, and that's from the beginning of the pandemic, March 1st, 2020, through August 31st, 2020, so the first 6 months. If a tenant owes you money for that period only, there's no evictions allowed for 2 reasons. The statute of limitations for unpaid rent has run its course, and then corrupt politicians have renamed the unpaid rent for this period a civil debt, which is not grounds for eviction. You cannot sue for a civil debt until November 2021. Before filing a lawsuit, you are required to have applied for the rent relief program, and then either have been rejected or no answer for 20 days. Typically, the only reason that there's no answer for 20 days is that the tenant has not cooperated by providing their income after their request was made. If you need to apply for the rent relief program and you haven't done it yet, there's 2 ways to reach them. You can call at 1-833-830-2122, or you can do it online at housingiskey.com. Landlords can file a civil lawsuit for the back rent or the civil debt. Civil lawsuits require an attorney representation, and it's expensive. The most effective remedy, in my opinion, is to go to small claims court and get a money judgment. Money judgments last for 10 years, and they can be renewed for another 10 years. The limits for small claims court have been lifted, so typically you can only file a couple lawsuits, but if you have 100 rentals and you have 100 tenants that were behind, you could file 100 small claims actions for unpaid rent. And the other thing that's been lifted is the amount. If a tenant owes you $100,000 in back rent, you can sue in small claims court for $100,000 for this civil debt or back rent. In my opinion, it's best to go ahead and go after these money judgments as quickly as possible. While you still know where the tenants are and you can serve them, do it now. If you wait, it may become very difficult to find them to even bring a lawsuit. The second time period is the transition period, and it runs from September 1st, 2020 to September 30th, 2021. When the tenant has responded with the COVID declaration saying that they are financially impacted negatively, and it doesn't matter if it's true or not, then the rest of this is true also. 25% of the rent is due for this period. It can be paid anytime, all the way up through September 30th, 2021. If 25% of the rent is not paid by that date, you can proceed with an eviction as long as you have served the required COVID impact forms to your tenant and they are still unpaid on the 25%. You must have served the proper 15-day notice to pay rent or quit and the COVID-related impact forms before filing an eviction for the 25% which is due during that period. Before filing for an eviction for this time period, a landlord must have first filed for the rent relief program and waited at least 20 days or been rejected. Typically, the only reason you will not be contacted again within those 20 days is that the tenant is not cooperating by providing their income. Now, on the 75% that remains, the balance, you can kind of treat that like the civil debt for the first time period. So it's a civil debt, it's not an evictable offense. The remedy is to go get a money judgment, and small claims court is probably the best place to do that. You won't be able to do it though unless you have first, again, filed for the rent relief program. Then you can go ahead and ask for your money judgment. The same rules I cited for getting the money judgment in the protected period apply here with this 75% of the rent during this transitional period number 2. The third time period is titled the COVID-19 Recovery Period Rental Debt. And that runs from October 1st, 2021 through March 31st, 2022. And during that time, the tenants have to pay 100% of whatever rent is due from October 1st on. And landlords may evict tenants for unpaid rent if they don't pay 100% of their rent beginning October 1st, 2021. Now, if a tenant is short during that time and you serve them a notice, you have to serve them the new notice. There's a new notice that replaces the old 3-day pay or quits that we used to use. And that notice has COVID language in it and tells them about some of their rights and where they can go for help. Very important not to include any other rent in this 3-day pay or quit. So if a tenant owes some rent money from back in the period 1 or 2, those need to be served one way. The period from October 1st needs to be served another way with this new 3-day pay or quit, and it should never include rent from the other periods of time, only from October 1st on. And then you can move forward with an eviction. And remember, the 3 days now is not just 3 calendar days, it's 3 days minus weekends and minus holidays. So it may be a 5-day or more notice by the time the last day is up. Well, thanks for listening today. I'm John Tyner with Tyner Property Management. We manage about 800 homes in the Sacramento area. Our claim to fame is that 99.9% of the tenants that we place don't get evicted each year. So we're very careful in the tenant selection process. And that's shown actually with our portfolio. So with 800 properties, I had 5 tenants who did not pay rent in full during the COVID period. We have collected money from the government for all of those but 1. So out of 800, we are going to court to evict 1 of them. So pretty good odds, but it all comes from careful tenant selection in the first place. If you'd like to reach me about a property management account that you'd like to have some help with, my cell number is 916-402-3095. Thanks so much and have a great day.